Hello. Happy Wednesday, everyone. It's an unbelievably beautiful day here in Bakersfield. Let me see what the temperature is. It says it is currently, says it's 62 degrees, but it's bright and sunny, big blue sky. It is lovely outside. All the flowers are blooming. My hay fever is like in prime condition right now. Welcome to my live stream. I want to tell you I'm thinking of possibly changing the time on Wednesdays to a little bit earlier, maybe like 10:30, so that we could be finished by 12. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments after the video is over. I think that it might work better for some people. And on the Sunday one, I may move it to Saturday at noon, 12 o'clock. I'm just thinking about it, but let me know your feelings on that in the comments after the video is over, where you can post on my YouTube channel. So it's just some thoughts going through my mind. I'm trying to make it work for as many people as possible. Also, if you don't happen to catch this while it's live, you can still comment when it's over, and I will respond to all the comments. I look at them once a day. So my morning routine is this. I get up, I have my coffee, and I say hello to my husband. And then I come in here, this is my office, and I look at all the comments on Facebook on Knitting with Suzanne Bryan, and I answer those as needed. I look at the comments on Ravelry and answer those as needed. Then I come over to both my YouTube channels and answer both of those as needed as well. I try to do that once a morning. So if you happen to post something midday, my time, and you don't feel like I'm catching you in a timely fashion, I will catch you first thing the next morning, my time. I'm in California. So I do try to stay up unless I'm out of town or incapacitated some way. Also, I do these every week. So once we get our time settled, you can put it on your calendar. So remind yourself to check in. I usually post these on Facebook a day or so in advance, sometimes a few hours in advance. And you can click on the link that I post, and it takes you to this page, although it's not live at the time, and you can hit the reminder thing, and it'll send you a little reminder, I think about 30 minutes before the live stream starts. And let's see, what else did I want to say? Oh, I do have an actual page on Facebook, which I've never utilized before until yesterday. And I think I'm going to start posting my notifications on, it's called Knitting Suzanne on Facebook. It's a page, it's not a group, rather than posting on my personal page. So you might want to follow my page, look on Facebook for Knitting Suzanne, and you can click like or follow. But I'll always share those videos or the live streams from that page to the group Knitting with Suzanne Bryan. It gets really convoluted, I also want to mention I also have a blog, Knitting with Suzanne. It's called knittingsuzanne.com. That's the address, knittingsuzanne.com. I don't post there very often. The last time I posted was last September. I use the blog for posting things where writing it out and showing pictures is the best way to transmit the information. I have a lot of really good stuff over on that blog about tension, being able to read your knitting, enlarge last bind-off stitch, uneven tension at the edge, gutters, how to figure out if your purls or your knits are larger, that kind of stuff, where it's better to show, where it takes a lot of writing and pictures are the best way to transmit the information. So you can look over there for that type of stuff. I know I've mentioned my blog a couple times, but I've never told you where to find it. So that might be a little bit helpful. Also, in the last live stream, I used this sweater. I modeled it on Amanda and Claire. That is Springtime, I think, by Joji Locatelli. It's a really cute little pattern. I knitted it out of Anzula Vera, which is linen and silk, and it's just lovely. I like it. It's a great springtime top. Let's see if that's everything. So let's see who's on here. So let's say good morning to everybody. So we have Claudia Rivera, C. Hill, Joyce Nugent, Jilly Lynn, Sandra Morin. Hello, Sandra. Cindy Jones. Hello, Cindy. Emily Beaton. And Shoha Singh, Luana Hendricks, Katharina Continental Combined, Francoise Monroe, E.T. Guerrero, Shaba Singh. And Shaba Singh asks the question, when are you planning the Aran knit along? That'll be in the fall, probably start late August, early September. And it'll run just like this one. It'll run for like 3 months. Tanya Onwardy, Lil Mimi 1919, Katharina, that's Deborah Cisneros, Evelyn Morel, Vicky Crabtree, Tanya Onwardy, Adriana Wheezy, Mary Inman, Marla France, Amber Shiwi, Nina Kellen, Indigo Knight, Kurt Payne, Leslie Dunn, Lilith Eden, Jane Hart, Kathy Trakowska, Janice Mason, Kathy Drew, Sandra Pinkerton, Elaine Mazuka, Ann Tremoliers, Champ Smith, Sandra Pinkerton. So now, if you have a question, put the word question in all caps so that I can easily see it over in the chat. Welcome, everybody. I have some things to talk about today, as usual. So the first thing I want to do is, did you get a chance to see my zipper videos? One video. So I showed how to put zippers in 2 different ways. This one, I used the sewing machine. I've got my little zipper here. Works really good. Okay, here's the back side. And I put this in with the sewing machine. Oh, you can't see it. I need to work on my lighting in here. I've got to do that. So this one, if you have any sort of design element that is running vertically like this, then it's easy to use the sewing machine because you can hide the sewing stitches in the ditch, more or less. This one is like a knit to, purl to ribbing, and you can't really do that on the sewing machine because it would show. Oh, and I showed how to put a little facing on the back with a ribbon. I think that's kind of cute. I like that. But I showed how to hand stitch this one in. Okay, so that was a really cool video. If you hadn't had a chance to take a look at it, check it out and share it with your friends. Then another video that I made recently, and I can't find my little swatches, is how to avoid the enlarged last bind off stitch. That is really, really cool. And the method I show is super simple, super easy. You do not have to think about it in advance before you get to that spot. You can do it right at the end, right before you bind off that very last stitch. So be sure to check that video out too. And leave me comments about what you think about it. Share my videos too. You can share them on Ravelry, Facebook, Reddit, Pinterest, wherever you want. So I finished writing up section 5 of the ITAG-Yoke, and Francoise has it translated. So it's going to be coming out on Friday about noon, right before noon. So take a look. So that's going to be on the ribbing at the bottom of the sweater and doing the sleeves, completing the sleeves. So I used some of the swatches from the ITAG cardigan, but I also knitted some extra swatches to give you some ideas of what you can do for ribbing. So let's just look at these. This is just knit 1, purl 1 ribbing, and I gave written directions for each one of these for working flat or in the round. So if you're knitting a cardigan without a steek, you can use the knit flat directions. If you're knitting a cardigan with a steek, so it's knit in the round, or you're knitting a pullover, you can use the in the round directions. So this is just plain knit 1, purl 1 ribbing. This is twisted knit 1, purl 1 ribbing, so the knits are twisted. This is brioche 1 color, brioche 2 colors. This is corrugated ribbing, 1 by 1 corrugated ribbing. So all of those are 1 by 1 patterns, a multiple of 2. Then I moved to the 2 by 2 patterns, a multiple of 4. So this is just plain 2 by 2 ribbing. Then I show twisted 2 by 2 ribbing. Then I threw in a little simple little mock cable. And I absolutely love doing stuff like this in my ribbing, especially on a sweater like this one that we're doing, where the lower body is pretty simple and plain. You can throw in some really cool design elements on the ribbing, and I love doing that. So I just put these in. These are just samples. You can find anything you want in your stitch dictionaries. This one is a 4-stitch cable. Whoops, hold on, my little things are falling off. Okay, so we're going in this direction. We did these are 2x2, so this is 2x2 corrugated ribbing. I like this too. It's much more bold than this. These are both corrugated ribbing. So if you're having a more bold statement, this is cool. If you have something simple, refined, delicate, this looks good. Then this is a 5-stitch repeat. So this is a little cable type. It's actually a slip stitch design with a yarn over in the middle, so it's got little holes. That's kind of lacy looking. And this is just a standard 4-stitch cable. It looks good as ribbing. Then I added the little picot hem. So this swatch is hemmed. You can see the back side there. Okay. So all of these are in the written directions for you to choose from, but you can also look in any of your stitch dictionaries. And I really like this one, but you know, whatever stitch dictionary you want to use, they'll all have something. But in this one particular, this is the Japanese Knitting Stitch Bible. In the back, she has a whole section just on edgings. And ribbing is really an edging. So she's just got all these designs. And there's many, many more. So let me tell you a little bit about ribbing, its purpose, and what type of stitches you can use for ribbings. The purpose of ribbing is to keep the edge of the fabric from curling up. You know, if you just work stockinette stitch to the bottom and did nothing special, the fabric would curl up, it would roll up. Now, there are times when that is cute. I've actually made pullovers where I let the cuffs roll up, I let the neck roll down and the bottom roll up, like kind of like a sweatshirt type thing. It's really, really cute. But oftentimes you don't want the bottom of your sweater to roll up. So what we have to do is avoid the all stockinette type fabric. Meg Swanson came across a thing for stranded knitting, because not everybody wants to do corrugated ribbing for stranded knitting. Sometimes you want your stranded knitting design to go all the way to the edge, and she calls it purl when you can. So really what she's saying when she does that is that you need a combination of knits and purls, and it does not have to be 50-50. So it might be like 40% purls, 60% knits. I wouldn't go more knits than that, but if you have a combination, any sort of combination, it could be garter stitch, it could be seed stitch, it could be ribbing, it could be cables, it could be a little lace design that has knits and purls in it. Anything that has combination of knits and purls to balance the curl of the fabric. So the purls will want to curl back this way, the knits want to curl this way, and if you use some knits and purls together, then your fabric comes out hanging straight. So don't restrict yourself to knit 1, purl 1 ribbing, or knit 2, purl 2 ribbing. It can be anything, and you can, you know, just experiment and try it out. You do need to check your stitch gauge though, so that it will mesh with your stockinette fabric of the body of your sweater. Speaking of that, many people, designers and many patterns and people have learned over years of knitting that when you do ribbing, you usually go down a needle size or 2 so that your ribbing isn't enlarged. And oftentimes designers will actually tell you to decrease your body stitches and go down needle size so that your ribbing is an appropriate width for your fabric. But one of the things I learned in the Master Hand Knitting program is how to make tidy ribbing. And I have a video on that, and that's part of the ITAG tutorial, the ITAG-Yoke tutorial. If that video is included, you can just go to the video playlist on that and see it. It's called Tidy Ribbing, and it's about pulling the yarn firmly forward between the knits and the purls. And it applies to seed stitch, it applies to ribbing, it applies to cables, all of that. And you'll find that if you start incorporating that maneuver into your knitting, that you do not need to go down in needle size. Your stitches will be the correct size without changing needles. When I knit a sweater, I use the same needle for the whole thing because I don't have that problem of my pearls, my ribbing being in large stitches. So check that video out too, and it should help you a lot. So when you're thinking about what you want to put on your border of your sleeves, around your neck, or even the front of a cardigan, look at some of these stitch patterns that I gave you and look in your stitch dictionaries too, and be creative. This gives you an opportunity to really express yourself and be individual and have a sweater that is not like anyone else's. It's your own personal sweater. Also, last time someone mentioned upper chest circumference, and I sort of blew it off a little bit. I want to give you my thoughts on that. So I'm going to use myself as an example. If I measure my upper chest up here, directly under the armpits, and you measure tight, I'm not pulling my skin in, but tight, and I get 34 inches. I'm 34 inches here, okay? Then if I measure across my shoulders, I am 13. I'm 13 from here to here. So what's interesting is if you double this, so for this side and the back side, that's 26, right? And subtract that from my circumference, my upper bust circumference, which was 34, you get 8 inches, right? Difference. Where is that 8 inches? It's right here. It's the thickness between here and here. There's 4 inches on either side. And that tells us a lot about armholes. Let me get my marking pen. I forgot to get that in advance. So this is about armholes. With this information, you need that information for armholes. You don't have to have it, but it's helpful, and that's what it's for. So if we have our armhole here, okay? So this is the front of your body, the top of the shoulder, and this is your underarm. So orient, okay? That 4 inches is the distance from here to here, 4 inches on my body. Okay, everybody's body is going to be a little bit different. So if I were going to draw the arm side for this, let me show you. The way I would draw it. We'll start out this way, okay? So this is the top of the shoulder. And this is your underarm. And this is looking at front of the garment, okay? Not sideways on the armhole like we were looking at. That tells me that this is going to be 2 inches from here to here, right? Half of the 4 inches. So what you do is you move up 2 inches here too, also 2 inches. So you have you could make a diagonal line here, a right triangle if you want. And that's how some armholes are made. But if you want to make a really sophisticated armhole, is you take that same area and you draw the circumference of the circle that would go there. So this would be your garment. This is exactly how you do an arm side. See how the front of the garment there? We don't need that in a yoke sweater, okay? So the upper chest measurement, that doesn't apply to a yoke at all. But it does apply when you're trying to figure out how thick the body is from the front to the back, okay? And on top of that, I know that Bonnie has been trying to learn about grading sweaters. So this is something I bought several years ago, and it comes out yearly. And it's like $86. And this is the American, let me see, I wrote it down over here because I never, it's ASTM, but it stands for the American Society for Testing and Materials. And that company is the standardized measurements for everything, not just bodies, but for materials, for construction, for making TVs. I mean, everything. It's very, very, very in-depth. But they put out in journals on everything. This one is body measurements. These are the standardized body measurements. And what this is if you're a person who likes spreadsheets and charts, there's not spreadsheets, charts. It is solid charts, the whole thing. And it's for little children, women, men, older, pregnant, everything is in here. And I got this quite a few years ago. This one came out in it. They've upgraded it twice. This is Apparel 13, and the current one is Apparel 15. I don't know if it tells the year. This one was 2013. So they updated it in 2013. They probably updated it again in 2015. They're probably going to update it again soon. But the one that's currently available on the website, which is ASTM International, is the 2015 version. But what's interesting, and I tried to use this because I was very interested in learning how to grade patterns as well. And it's there's some interesting things in here. For example, they consider when they show these people, here's the little bodies, that they're all the same height. Now, they might be different thicknesses, but they're all the same height. And same thing for the women. Now, the children get bigger but the women are all the same height. So because I'm tall, I'm acutely aware of that most clothing does not fit me because the sizes just get bigger this way. There's no variation this way. So I highly recommend getting it if you're truly, truly interested. It is $87. And I had to find it out because I was looking for that secret information that they keep somewhere about grading patterns, the industry standards. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Okay. So also someone was talking about, and I don't remember who, I'm sorry, about Elspeth Lavold's Viking Patterns, the Celtic patterns in here. And these are very, very cool. And when I did a lot of research one time on cables that start and stop mid-fabric, like this. And this book is very, very good for that. So just the Celtic cables in general, but if you're particularly interested in cables starting and stopping mid-fabric, this is knit like this. So you can see they start and stop mid-fabric. This is a great book for that purpose. I wrote an article for Cast On magazine for advanced cables one time, and I knitted two really beautiful sweaters, pillows that went with it. One had the cables in a second color, like my cardigan that I made this fall. Okay, let me see if I've covered everything up front. I think I may have. Let's go over here and look and see what you guys have to say. And then we'll go back. Well, let's go to the Ravelry questions first. Let's do that first this time. Okay, so Susan Maloney says, question, when you measure the armhole depth using a stick, how tight is the stick? Is it in line with the top of your bra or just shoved up under the arm? It's shoved up under the arm, as high as it'll go. Now, the thing about knitting is, and especially knitting a sweater, the entire sweater hangs from the shoulders, the weight of the sweater. And if any part of the sweater is going to stretch, it's going to be this part right here. So very seldom have I ever had a problem with my armhole depth on the sweater being too shallow. If anything, it's too deep because it stretches. That's where your sweater is going to stretch. And if it stretches an inch, that's significant in the underarm area. So I measure right up. I don't push above. I don't push my skin up, but I bring this right up. And this used to be a really confusing thing to me too. I spent a lot of time trying to figure this out when I was first knitting sweaters, is where the heck do you measure in your underarm? Measure right up to the armpit. Okay, as far as, so it's right there. It has nothing to do with my bra. And you can do it like this or like this. And the secret is to measure from here all the way over to here, like I show in the video and on the diagram, because if you accidentally get this crooked, the distance is the same, whether it's crooked or straight, and you just divide it in half. And then that'll give you the top of the shoulder there. Okay, I used to be very confused on that myself. That was a tough one for me. Armholes are hard. That's why in doing these knit-alongs, I started out first with the raglan and then with the yoke, and then we'll do the drop shoulder. Then we'll do the set-in sleeves, because that is the hardest one of all to get right to fit you. And if you start with the raglan, then the yoke, then the drop shoulder, by that time you've got a good idea of how your sweaters are fitting and how the underarms are fitting on you. And you get a lot of personal experience that way from your own body. The next question. This is from Susan Maloney too. My sweaters always seem to be high in the back. Can I add short rows under the waist at the back, and where should I start? I think I'm more hunched shoulders than big butt. If you're more hunched shoulders than big butt, I would add the short rows right underneath the yoke in the back. And that will accommodate the hunch shoulders part of it. You can also add short rows down in the lower portion of your sweater or in the waist section, or you can add a few in each area. You can distribute the short rows down if you want. So, but for yoke, there's two general areas, and that is either at the neck directly or underneath the yoke. And either one of those areas are fine. And I kind of described that in the ITAG-Yoke tutorial about how you would choose one over the other. This is, excuse me, from Jaw 1045. Excuse me. Question. Is there a formula for doing either bust shaping or waist shaping? Normally the pattern I'm using tells you knit 10, wrap and turn, purl back, number of stitches, etc. Yes, there is a formula. If you're using your own body measurements, as I discussed in the last live stream when we were measuring bodies, you use if you're doing upper waist shaping, you use the distance below your bust to your waist. And you need to know on your body what that distance is. Let's say it's 3 inches. Then you know that you have to distribute your waist shaping in those 3 inches of rows. So you would need your row gauge. Let's say you're getting 7 rows to the inch, 3 inches, that's 21 rows. And if you want to decrease, let's say you want to decrease 5 stitches in those 21 rows, you would distribute them evenly between the 21 rows. Now, obviously, it's not going to come out perfect for 21 rows. 5 doesn't go in there evenly. You have a row X left over, and you want to have a decrease right at the beginning, a decrease at the end, and the other 3 spread in between. So what you could do in that case is the very first row make a decrease. That's row 1. And on row 22, make a decrease. Am I thinking right? And spread the other 3 out. Well, back up. So you have it. You could make it 21, 7. Just evenly distribute them. I'm not thinking straight. You'd have to have a piece of paper. We can use my board here. That's why this is called Suzanne Off the Cuff, because this is not scripted in any way. Believe me, you're getting it directly out of my head. So let's say we have our 3 inches that we want to, we have 3 inches, and we're going to make an increase here or decrease depending on whether we're going bottom up or top down, and one here, and the other 3 can be distributed in between. Now, if it turns out that you have an odd number of rows or an extra row in there, if you have an extra row between two of them, it doesn't matter. This is just knitting. Knitting is extraordinarily flexible. Okay, it does not have to be right on. I was talking to Charles on the phone this morning about the box pleats and trying to figure out how to do that in a top down. And like we were talking about, you know, a ½ inch means nothing in knitting. Nothing. A ½ inch in length, a ½ inch in width. It's just, you shouldn't stress over ½ an inch. I wouldn't even stress over an inch except for in the arm depth, armhole depth. But if it's an inch in the circumference, an inch in the length, you know, an inch is so small, and knit fabric is so flexible that your eye is not going to be able to tell a difference of that inch, okay? So back over here. So that's how you figure that out, Judy, and same thing with if you want to do bust darts here. You figure out the distance between the midline of the underarm and how far you want the last dart to be out. How many stitches is that? Let's say it's 20 stitches and you want to make several short row turns. You would have the last one be at the 20th stitch and the others would be evenly distributed between that and your midline underarm. It's just you're using your stitch gauge, your body measurements, and you can figure it out. Super easy. It seems complicated and mysterious when you don't know what it is, but once you learn it, it's very, very easy. It's like too simple. This is from Susan Maloney again. She says, I'm thinking of adding part of one lacy wedge on each side of my sweater for the flare over the hips, but it has to start at the waist to fit because it's about 8 inches long. I think that would look just fine. It would look absolutely beautiful. Really pretty. Above it, I would put like either a purl stitch, a line of pearls or something, so you get a little line going right above it so it doesn't just start out of nothing. In fact, you might make a faux seam directly from the underarm down. And if you've already knit part of that, you can just drop those stitches back to the underarm and pick them back up as purl stitches. It's not hard to do. I always say that, but if you've never done it before, it's mysterious and seems impossible. But all of these things really are, once you've tried them, are very, very simple. This is from Sunny RB. Hi, Suzanne. Thanks for all that you do. It's awesome. This is my first ever yoke and top down and in the round and seamless sweater. For me, fit comes above all. I'd rather knit the sweater 3 times than wear an ill-fitting garment. And that's me too. That's why I do all of this. It's about fitting. Here's what I'm looking to achieve. I want a scoop neck. First of all, it's really not practical to have like a scoop neck like this in a yoke sweater. But you can have it be, if it's wider up here, you can bring it up in the back so that the yoke comes down in the front. It's not necessarily a scoop sweater. You're just shifting the circle of the neck. For example, remember when I showed you on Claire? So here's the circle of the neck. My shoulders are right here. So half the circles, I have a few short rows in the back. So you can see my short rows there. See them? So here's the tops of my sleeves. But if I put more short rows in there, what it would do is it would bring the front down. But by putting the short rows above the yoke, it keeps the yoke horizontal. And I talked about this before. So yes, you would want to put short rows in here. But remember, for each little bit of short row you put back there, it's going to drop down the front. Now she's talking about putting in 4 inches or more of short rows. I don't think you're going to need that much. And what's cool about doing this, you do it right at the beginning of the yoke. So you can actually try it on before you go any further. And just doing that part might take you an hour or 2 to get all your short rows in and actually try it on and see how it fits on your neck before you proceed. And that's what I recommend doing. So you might be knitting your sweater or you might be knitting a swatch. And the only way that you're going to find out is to try it. But if it's just a swatch, it's not very much knitting. But if it works, it's the beginning of your sweater. Okay? And that's all the questions over there on Ravelry, so I can close that. So let's come over here and see what you all have to say. Okay? Let me start at the top. And I'm looking for the word question. I hope you all enjoy doing this. I really enjoy doing it. There's only 92 people on here right now. That's not very many, but it is Wednesday and it is really pretty outside. And I've only gotten 34 thumbs up. So thumbs up. Okay, I'm looking for the questions. Maybe there's no questions today. I just moved everything up. Let's see. Okay. Oh, Anne Tremolier says, question, do you plan to come to Europe? I don't have any plans right now, but I would certainly love to do that. That would be so fun. I have been to Paris once. I've been to Barcelona a few times. I really like Barcelona. I liked Paris too, but I didn't get to spend enough time there. I'll tell you a story about Barcelona. Oh my goodness. Wherever my husband and I go, we like to use the public transportation, and because you see more that way. So we were in Barcelona. We had just gotten there, and I always get jet lag really, really, really bad. So the first day of my trip is like wasted. I can't do anything. I can't function. I try to. I get up and I have coffee and all that, but I just don't feel good. So the first day he's out on his own exploring. So by the evening, he's checking in on me to see if I'm up and ready to come out and play yet. And I was. So he told me where he was. We were in Barcelona, and he was down at where the Magic Fountain is. And so he told me which of the metro trains to take and where to get off. So I find the entrance to the metro, and I go on it. And when I get off, there's two stairways, and it's underground. There's a stairway going this way and a stairway going this way. And they both say the same thing. So I just chose the one on this side, and I went up there, and I couldn't find him. He wasn't anywhere. I walked around the block, and then I couldn't find the entrance back down into the subway. So I kept walking. I finally found an entrance to the subway, but I had no idea where I was. So I just went back to my starting point where I started and got on the subway, went back to that point, then came back again to the exit and took the other stairway. So all of that took about an hour. And I got up to the top of those stairs, and my husband was just standing there waiting for me. I was never so glad to see anybody in my life. It was like, oh, thank you. Because I thought I was never going to find him again. But anyway, that turned out okay. But I'm a very adventurous traveler. I'm not afraid to travel, and I do like to go places. Okay. Bert Humperdinck says, work on your lighting. Yeah, I got to do that. Okay. Let's see. Tanya Onwardy, question, what happens to the two edge stitches at the point of working in the round if knitting a Henley? Working in the round or working back and forth? So if you're working the Henley and you're not doing a steek, you're working back and forth, those two edge stitches, that's where you're going to be picking up stitches to create the little band that is the Henley, your button band. Okay, so they will disappear. Those two edge stitches will disappear. Sandra Morin, what was the name of the sweater and who made it? It is on Ravelry. I saw on YouTube the zipper. What was the name of the sweater and who made it? I don't remember. I'm sorry. Okay. This is Shobha Singh. Question, for latecomers who have missed both the ITAG-Yoke and the ITAG, would you consider a bundle package deal on purchasing both? I might. That's a good idea. I've never thought about that, but that's a good idea. I'll think about that. Thank you for suggesting that. Sue Mills, hi from New Zealand for a little while. On my way to work. It's Thursday morning. Oh my goodness. Champ Smith, question, suppose I cast on provisionally, make immediate increases, then the short rows for the back neck, and continue down the yoke. You've discussed changing your mind later and knitting up from. You could do it before or after those increases. It really doesn't matter. It's okay. I have been working on my swatches. I'm making a video on showing how to do the short rows back and forth at the back of the neck. And I have one swatch done I've got to do because I wanted to show doing the shortest short row back out to the longest. And then I wanted to show doing the longest to the shortest, and also showing how to do the short row turns in pattern, like if you want to do a lace pattern. So I have one of those done. I've got to do the other one. Once I have that finished, then I'll be able to make that video, and that will answer a lot of people's questions about the short rows at the back neck. But Champ, you can do them above the first increase round or below it. It doesn't really matter. It just, you'll have a whole lot more stitches to work with below the increase round than you will above it. I think the end result is very similar. Okay. And Tremolier's question, as I can't make short rows for my bust shaping, can I increase after dividing body sleeves, but only in front? It won't add length, but width. And after bust, I decrease. Yes, you can do that. What I would do actually is at later on, you know how on the yoke, this is more drawings. On the yoke, I'm just drawing half the yoke. Okay, so this would be your neck opening here, okay? And the very first, this is an increase round, this is an increase round, and then this is an increase round. And typically, half of the yoke is, the increase rounds happen in this half of the yoke. In the second half of the yoke, there are no increase rounds. And what that corresponds with is as the yoke comes out, and by the time you finish the yoke, it's the tops of the sleeves. Let me put mine on. I haven't made much progress on this because I was writing part 5. Oops. I'll show you. Okay, so you can see where my yoke starts and where it ends is right here, how far it comes down on the arm. So this is the whole yoke. If you are large in the bust, this is the bottom of my yoke. I continued in stockinette for an inch after my pattern. Okay, so the bottom of my yoke is right here. If I wait till there to make extra increases for the bust, that's too late. What I would do is if you have a really large bust and you need that extra width, more fabric width-wise, I would do some increases through here just over the bust area. And you can calculate, you know, that would be like right here, right above the bust, not at the bust line. You don't want to do it right there. You want to do it above the bust. So it could even be higher. It could be like right under here. So let's say you want to add 4 or 6 inches of fabric. And if you're getting 5 stitches to the inch, I'm just making this up, and you want 6 inches of fabric, that's 30 stitches, right? So you would add 30 stitches in here, and you could calculate how many stitches you have to work with between here and here. How many stitches do you have to work with? Let's say you have, we want to add 30 stitches. Let's say you have 90 stitches to work with. You would make an increase every 3rd stitch, and that would give you 30 extra stitches, right? And that's what you could do. Then when you get down into the waist, you could decrease those stitches away. And you could actually decrease some on the front and some on the back, and it would be okay, but most of them should be on the front. Does that answer your question? That was a great question. Did you guys like that fitting thing last time? I was hoping that it would help you to identify with other body sizes, because we're not all the ideal models. I know I keep saying that over and over, but the reason you want to learn how to fit a sweater, the reason why you're following me, is because the standard, straightforward knitted garments don't work for you, and they don't work for me. I have to change things on them. That's why I've learned about adjusting patterns, okay? So that was Anne. And Sung Pak comment, Meg Swanson was interviewed by Fruity Knitting. She talked about purl when you can. It was very informative. Yes, I think that's Meg Swanson is just brilliant, unbelievably brilliant. Unfortunately, she lives in the shadow of her mother. If her mother wasn't shadowing her, Meg all by herself is a milestone in knitting. She's wonderful and a lovely person. So, Adriana, question, do you have any recommendations for sewing machine brands models that are good for steeking or sewing knit fabric? I've heard some will cut through your knitting. All I've had experience with is my own sewing machine, so I'm not an expert on sewing machines. I have, both of mine are portable. I have a Bernina and an Elna. My Elna is like about 45 years old. It's my fallback. I love that machine, but I've never had a problem with it cutting. It might have to do with the size of the stitches you're using. And somebody asked me about that last time. I would adjust your stitch length based upon the size of yarn you're using. If you're using like bulky, I would maybe use your stitch length that goes over one strand of yarn, a long stitch. If you're using fingering weight, you're going to want just a much shorter stitch. It'll go over one strand of yarn. You don't want to be chopping through the yarn. What you want to be doing is going over the yarn and catching the zipper on the back side. So whatever you adjust the stitch length to your yarn. Okay, I should have said that in the video. I don't know if I did I? I don't know, probably not. Okay, Tanya, question, I think you may have missed my question. What happens to the two edge stitches of knitting a Henley when it's time to knit in the round? Continue knitting. Don't remove those two stitches. I'm going to draw another picture. That's a good question. I missed what you were asking. Okay, so let's say that you're knitting your Henley like this, and you're knitting flat. Okay, so this is open down the front, and these dots are your edge stitches. Those are your selvage stitches, okay? You have those two extra selvage stitches. Just cast on however many stitches you need for the width of your bands that you're going to put on here. Let's say you're going to put a 1/2 inch band and you're getting 6 stitches to the inch. That would be 3 stitches. You're going to cast on 3 stitches here. You cast those on in addition to those edge stitches, because when you come back here and you pick up, you're going to pick up down here, and then you're going to pick up across here also. You're going to pick up across those cast on stitches. And then you're going to pick up here, and you're going to work one button band down here and attach it here, and I'll show you how to do that. And the other button band the other side, and it'll be attached on the back side. So the 2 button bands overlap completely down here. Let me think about it a little bit. Okay, Tanya, let me really think about that. I think this works fine. Are you in the Ravelry group there? Can you post your question also in Ravelry? And I'll knit myself a little swatch, but I think this is going to work really good, but I just want to double check for you, okay? Champ Smith's question, for the scoop neck, wouldn't such a difference between back and front make the color design part of the yoke seem off? No, it would not if you add the short rows above the yoke. So if I added more, right now my yoke is perfectly horizontal. If I add the short rows up here, all it does is it brings the back up. The yoke itself does not change. The back will come up. If I add the short rows below the yoke, then the yoke will come up and the front will be down. It will change it. Okay. Leslie Dunn, question. To make sure I have enough yarn, is it okay to knit to the waist, then the sleeves, and then come back to the body? That way I have a better idea if I have enough to add to the pocket. Yes, that's an excellent plan. Very good plan. Mary Inman, question. I've been looking at top-down yoke patterns on Ravelry. Can you use the same method of arm bust size discrepancy adjustments as we've done with ITAGs? Yes. In fact, Amanda, who was on here last week, when she knit her Zweig, because she has very muscular arms, and the Zweig has tight arms to begin with. So we did the same thing. We walked through the calculations of how big was her arm, how big was the bust. We found the places in the pattern where she gave the stitch counts for the arms and the bust for the different sizes. And we found the stitch count that Amanda needed for her arm, the stitch count she needed for her bust, added the whole thing together and figured out how wide did her yoke need to be. And then we had to make slight adjustments because I think the stitch pattern is 14 stitches wide. We needed to add 14 stitches here and 14 stitches here so that her stitch pattern was maintained around. So I think her arms are like 2 sizes larger than her body. And you can do that in any sweater. It just takes a little thinking. And you know how they always advise you to read through the whole pattern before you start knitting? That's what you do. I look through a pattern and I actually highlight my sizes as I go through. And then and sometimes you have to work backwards. Like if you're doing a top-down yoke, the knit beginning information is enough information for you to decide which sleeve size is going to fit. You have to actually read through the pattern, come to the part where they talk about how many stitches are remaining for the sleeves. How many stitches are you going to put off for each sleeve off of the yoke before adding in the underarm stitches? And then you have to work back up from there and see where those sleeves fit into the beginning and what did she do at the beginning for those sleeves versus the body. So it's kind of, and I actually enjoy doing that. It's like a puzzle, you know. Okay. Champ Smith, comment. I was splitting my question above, so there was more. Okay, I see. I see. For the scoop neck, let me see. Let me find it. I thought you had said before that any short rows in the back make the front go forward. They make the front go forward relative to the back. As the short rows come up, the back neck becomes higher, which makes the front lower than the back. I actually moved my sweater forward. That probably wasn't, in my mind, I'm seeing what I want you to see, but in your mind, you're seeing something completely different. But as you add, so for example, here's my short rows. I don't know if you can see them. You can see my short rows here. There's about an inch of them, okay? So the back neck, can you see how the back neck is higher than the front? But my design is horizontal to the floor. That's what I was trying to, I'm sorry, I gave a wrong visual there. Okay, Deborah Cisneros, comment. Read jet lag. Anytime you cross more than 3 time zones, avoid eating protein if possible the day before, and day of your traveling, that should decrease, if not eliminate the effect. Thank you. I'll try that next time. I'm going to Ireland and Scotland in a couple of weeks, so that'll be fun. And by the way, I was going to go out of town next week, and it looks like on Sunday, I'll still be home. So we will have a live stream this coming Sunday. I don't know about Wednesday yet. And then Easter, I'm going to skip on Easter Sunday. Okay. So I've come to the bottom of all the questions on here. Does anybody else have any questions or anything else you want to talk about? I'll give you a minute. Let's see if I covered everything here. I think so. If anybody has any ideas for resources for lighting for me, I did post a picture one time of my space. I'll post a picture of it again on Ravelry of what my workspace is here. It's not very big. I really like this workspace, so I don't want to change, but I have a wall over here. I have the edge of a shelf here. I have a big window here what is to the north. So I'm getting northern light through the window. I have an overhead light in this room. I have rooms to put a little bit more lighting up here, but I don't really know what to get. I'm not a photography expert or a lighting expert. So if any of you have anything that you would like to volunteer that would help me, I'm all ears. Okay. Let's see. I have a lamp. See, I have this lamp. See, what happens is and I can change this lamp. I can change the color, whether it's daylight, but it's too glary. I can also change, but when I start turning it down, and see, it glares in my glasses. So I think I need something softer. Some others. Yeah, this glare that I'm getting right now is from the outside light coming in through my window. Okay, so if I miss your posts, post again on Ravelry. Be sure you put it in. And I try to look every day, but sometimes there's a lot of posts and I might overlook it. Give me thumbs up here. Share my videos with your friends. And I'll see you back here on Sunday at 2 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time. It's always fun and I enjoy communicating with you. Take care and happy knitting.